In 2026, scientists published a study in the journal Science that quietly rewrote human history. Not with a fossil, not with a bone, with math. And what they found was this. The way Neanderthals and modern humans interbred was not random. It was biased, specifically toward Neanderthal males and modern human females, which means that somewhere in Ice Age Europe, tens of thousands of years ago, there were mixed families. Neanderthal fathers, human mothers, and their children became part of us. But to understand why that matters, and why it changes everything we thought we knew about extinction, we need to go back. Way back. For over a century, Neanderthals had what one researcher memorably called the worst image problem in history. Hunched, grunting, primitive. That image is wrong. Completely wrong. Neanderthals mastered the Levallois stone technique, a tool-making method so precise and complex that modern flint knappers need months of practice to replicate it. They produced birch pitch, one of the earliest synthetic materials in the entire archaeological record. Making it requires controlled heating in a low-oxygen environment. That is not accident. That is chemistry. They survived in Europe for somewhere between 250,000 and 400,000 years. For context, Homo sapiens as a species have only existed for around 300,000 years. Neanderthals were not primitive. They were cognitively sophisticated, highly adapted, and remarkably resilient. Which makes what happened next all the more haunting. Around 40,000 years ago, the fossil record goes silent. No more Neanderthals. And scientists have spent decades arguing about why. Theory 1. Climate. Ice Age Europe was not stable. Rapid swings between warming and freezing repeatedly fragmented populations, pushing species to the edge. Neanderthals may have survived previous cycles, but finally ran out of runway. Theory 2. Competition. Modern humans arrived from Africa roughly 45 to 54,000 years ago. They came in growing numbers, with larger social networks, longer distance trade routes, and more flexible technology. Resource pressure alone may have slowly squeezed Neanderthals out. Theory 3. Disease. Modern humans carried new pathogens. Neanderthals, with no prior exposure, may have had little immunity. We may have been walking biological weapons without knowing it. And Theory 4. Assimilation. This is where it gets complicated. Because when geneticists finally sequenced the Neanderthal genome, they found something that shattered the premise of the question entirely. Neanderthals did not simply disappear. A significant part of them merged into us. Neanderthals are not extinct. Their DNA is alive. Right now, in billions of human bodies walking the planet today. Every person of non-African descent carries between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA. In some populations, particularly in East Asia and among indigenous peoples of the Pacific, it is even higher. And even populations in sub-Saharan Africa, long thought to carry none, show faint traces, likely from ancient humans who migrated back into Africa thousands of years later, carrying Neanderthal ancestry with them. Collectively, across all modern human populations, roughly 20% of the entire Neanderthal genome still exists, scattered in fragments across our species like pieces of a broken mirror, each person carrying a different shard.
If you sequence the DNA of people living today, you can see that all people outside of Africa carry between 2 and 5% Neanderthal DNA fragments.
But here is what no one could explain. The DNA was not spread evenly. When scientists mapped where Neanderthal ancestry appears in our genome, they found something strange. certain regions were almost completely empty of Neanderthal DNA. These became known as Neanderthal deserts. And the most striking desert of all was on the X chromosome. The X chromosome, the one most directly tied to reproduction, carried almost no Neanderthal ancestry. Why? The first explanation was natural selection. Maybe Neanderthal variants on the X chromosome were harmful and got deleted over generations. But something did not add up. The pattern was too consistent across populations to be explained by selection alone. Selection alone did not fully explain the magnitude of the signal. There had to be something else. And in 2026, researchers found it. A study published in Science ran detailed genetic simulations to test what different interbreeding scenarios would look like in our DNA today. Here is the key mathematical constraint. Under neutral conditions, meaning no preference, no bias, just random mixing, the ratio of X chromosome Neanderthal ancestry to autosomal ancestry cannot exceed 4/3. That number, 4/3, became the breaking point. Because the observed ratios in modern humans go beyond what simple demographic mixing can explain. The only models that reproduced the observed pattern were those that included strong gender bias. The interbreeding was not random, it was gender biased. The data strongly suggest that most mixed pairings involved Neanderthal males and modern human females, not equally in both directions. This was not just occasional contact. The models suggest repeated ancestry-conditioned mating patterns across generations. Mixed families that formed regularly and that left a permanent, mathematically detectable fingerprint in our DNA. The reverse pairing, modern human males with Neanderthal females, almost certainly occurred as well, but at lower frequency. And Neanderthals themselves carried traces of modern human DNA from even earlier contact events, confirming this was a web of interactions stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Now, why the directional bias? We can only theorize. Possibly social structure. In many ancient human groups, females moved between communities, so modern human women may have entered Neanderthal groups more often than the reverse. Possibly resource dynamics. Possibly something about cultural contact we will never fully reconstruct. But the genetic evidence is clear. The story of extinction was actually a story of family. And that changes the question entirely. So what are these Neanderthal genes actually doing in you right now? More than you would expect. Variants related to keratin production, the protein in your skin and hair, came from Neanderthals. For early modern humans moving into Ice Age Europe, tougher skin and different hair texture may have provided real advantages against cold and UV exposure. Immune system genes. Some Neanderthal variants appear to have helped early Eurasians respond to pathogens they had never encountered before. The biological inheritance of people who had spent hundreds of thousands of years in European environments. Metabolism. Neanderthal gene variants linked to fat storage and cold adaptation appear in populations with northern ancestry. A gene that helped someone survive an Ice Age winter is a remarkable thing to carry, even if, in a world of central heating and processed food, it occasionally misfires as increased risk for type 2 diabetes. The same inheritance, different environments, different outcomes. Evolution is never finished. So let us revisit the original question. Did Neanderthals go extinct? Think of two rivers converging. One name survives on the map, but the water is mixed forever. The last Neanderthal fossil dates to around 40,000 years ago. But that date does not mark the death of a species. It marks the end of a distinct identity, the point at which the genetic signal of a separate lineage becomes too diluted to maintain its own signature. The genes did not die. They diluted. They merged. And they are still here. The so-called brutes of the Ice Age survived brutal climate shifts for hundreds of thousands of years. They mastered fire chemistry. They built complex tools. They formed families with our ancestors. And they left part of themselves in you. Extinction is not always an ending. Sometimes it is a transformation. The last Neanderthal did not die 40,000 years ago. The last Neanderthal is walking the earth right now, and you might be one of them.